Hello and welcome to 5 Minutes or More with the Script Mentor. I am the Script Mentor and your host, Gino Scala. This is episode number 215. And I want to take this time to point out some fairly common mistakes that I am seeing of late, mostly from very, very new screenwriters. And the first is how they describe themselves in the screenwriting community. For example, I have seen people call themselves WGA writers, and they have written one script. Now, when you drill down with this, you'll discover that the screenwriter, unbeknownst to them, they don't really know any better because they haven't been around much. But they have written a screenplay and registered with the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, or the Writers Guild Association, whichever, but I think it's of America. And they claim themselves to be, at that point, a writer with the WGA. Now, let me tell you what the WGA is. It is the Writers Guild of America, but it's also, the guild is a union. And it is a union of veteran professional screenwriters. And to achieve the status of being a WGA screenwriter, you must be you must qualify for WGA status by being volunteered or introduced by another member after having worked on a union-sanctioned film project, mostly feature films. So any feature film that you have written or have co-written, or have doctored, or added to in any significant way, you can be invited or nominated for membership. Therefore, the WGA does a cursory background investigation as to what the film project was that you were involved in, and they offer you membership, and you pay an annual dues or monthly dues. As a WGA writer, you're required to charge your writing. If you're hired, you have a window, a range where of pay rate. The latest contract, well, they're obviously on strike now, but the previous contract was the minimum of $83,000, and it can go up to 2 or 4% of the overall budget and whatever is basically negotiated. Some well-known and highly successful screenwriters can earn several $1 million a film as their going rate. But in general, as a WGA writer, if you were asked by a production company that is doing a union-sanctioned project whereby all the crew are unionized in their own specific unions, then you, as a non-union writer, can be involved and earn your way into the union or the guild. So to call yourself a WGA screenwriter is very incorrect, okay? You're not a WGA writer by virtue of writing a screenplay and having it registered with the WGA, okay? Now that is a common misconception that really needs to be straightened out, and it's no fault of the screenwriters. I don't think they're purposely muddying up the waters to come off as a professional screenwriter, because you can tell that within the first few lines of the screenplay. But overall, I don't think this is a topic that's ever really discussed at any great length, and I wanted to put it out there as a reminder. I have talked about this issue in the past, and so this is just another gentle reminder. This would also include calling oneself a writer for International Screenwriters Association, ISA. ISA is a social group, professional, perhaps. I don't know quite how professional, but it's basically an online group where people can submit screenplays, pay for posting a log line. They offer some jobs, things of that nature. But submitting your screenplay to ISA for review does not make you an ISA writer. Unless, of course, you are employed by ISA to write articles for them. A third situation might come in the form of coverfly. I have seen people say they write for coverfly, or write for IMDb, or Movie Bites, which is a newsletter. Now, there are occasions, I do know some writers that write for Movie Bites. I do know writers that write for Coverfly. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just the new screenwriter who submits or pays for the newsletter for Coverfly, submits their screenplay for review or to send out to various screenwriting competitions and festivals, and then they call themselves a writer with Coverfly. And that's not the case. Now, so you have to keep that in mind. You're generally a freelance screenwriter, and you write spec screenplays, and you're only an employee of a production company or a writing company, such as my companies, the Script Mentor or Shark Eating Man Productions, where you're an employee, you're paid to do certain things. Then you can say, I am a member or I am an employee of the Script Mentor. I am an employee of Coverfly. I am an employee of IMDb. Obviously, these sites do have employees, but don't confuse submitting your screenplay to being a member of that site. Now, another thing, a different topic entirely that I wanted to bring up was I recently I accepted an invitation, a LinkedIn invitation from a screenwriter who then he sent the... Now, the other thing I wanted to discuss was recently I connected with a screenwriter on a social site who then sent me a message. Are you looking at screenplays? Or are you accepting screenplays? Now, that was the extent of his communication, and I'm assuming, because I've received these requests before, these questions before, they were regarding their screenplay to me and my production company, because I am listed as a producer. But I found it a very strange request since we had just met. No discussion was ever made. And I questioned him, have you sent query letters before? Now, this is not to embarrass anybody or to call them out because you're never going to know, you're never going to figure out who this person is by this video, except for the writer himself. And I asked if he had ever sent a query letter before, and he said, I don't think I have. So I don't think he quite understood the question. I think he believes that I was asking if he had sent me a query letter. So I clarified, no, I don't mean me. I mean in general. Anybody a query letter ever. And I never heard back from him. The problem here is that connecting with somebody, right off the bat asking if they accept screenplays, because that's in effect what this person was doing. I have accepted screenplays like that in the past because I knew these writers were new and they didn't have a clue as to what they were doing. And I was hoping I would be able to help them down the road. I'm not doing that anymore because they're just not accepting help. They don't care. They feel like they've written a screenplay and they want a producer to read it. Well, you're not going to get any responses from a legitimate producer by asking, are you accepting screenplays? Without even knowing this person. You have to go through the query letter process and be professional. Unless you're backslapping buddies and you know each other outside of work or even on, maybe you never met, but you've been in many, many discussions over a long period of time. You share very similar values and you're sharing family information, you know each other quite well. Then you could be much more informal. But right off the bat, that's not how it's done. And what you're doing in these situations is you're making a bigger mistake than you realize because you're already establishing a reputation of being a newbie. Now, I don't use that term very much, but you have to try hard not to look like an amateur when you're in this business. And that especially includes making your screenplay read like it was written by an amateur. So let's say you've written a great screenplay and you've gotten all the help that you need to make it look professional. And then you blow it all by saying, are you looking for screenplays? To someone you don't know. So I have many videos on how to work with producers and how to write the proper query letter and how to write an effective log line and things of this nature. And my entire Script Mentor course teaches you how to write like a professional, even in your first screenplay, which is, usually something it takes 5 years or so to accomplish. But by a professional telling you what to do and what to avoid in order to look like a professional, that's the key. So that'll do it for this episode 215 of 5 Minutes or More with the Script Mentor. And we'll see you next time. Have a great day.